You see, I think it's really bothersome that we're always sharing this advice over and over, that the path to happiness comes from looking after yourself first. Now, I think it's good advice when it helps people to get out of toxic relationships and to start ensuring that they take a stand and they set their boundaries with people all around them. In those cases, it can be really wonderful advice. However, I think that ultimately it's not going to result in a fulfilling life if you consistently put yourself first. The reason is that I think we're social beings. We're wired to be in relationships with others. We can't really exist in isolation. And the way I understand who I am is very much based on me looking at myself through the eyes of others. Now, when you think about this, I think that we're really here to be in service of other people. That's really what society is about. That's how our economy has built itself up. It's all about creating value for other people around you. And I think that when you always follow the advice to look after yourself first, it's like you detach from a key and fundamental part of who we are. So with that in mind, I have 5 tips that if you embrace these 5 tips, I think it will result in a much more fulfilling life, and happiness will be the natural result. The first tip is that you need to stop trying to be happy. You see, I don't think the purpose of life, I don't think we're here on this planet to try to be happy. Rather, I think that we've been given this incredible body, this incredible brain. We have a deep instinct and we respond instinctively to things around us for the purpose of survival. And the way we survive is by cultivating good relationships with people around us. I mean, think of the hunter and gatherer times. If you're going to be selfish all of the time, you're not really going to have good relationships with people. You won't have quid pro quo, and you won't just consistently help each other so that you get helped in return. And I think it's really important to keep this in mind, that we're not here on this earth to try to be happy. As soon as you start focusing on happiness, you create this definition of happiness that's separate from where you are. And you start doing things like, well, if I had a better house, I would be happy. If I finally found the real love of my life, I'd start to be happy. You sort of place your definitions of happiness outside yourself. You create separation between where you are right now and what you're striving to achieve. So you end up objectifying happiness by placing it as an aim. Rather, I think that when you focus on living a fulfilling life, on getting meaning from things all around you, then I think that happiness naturally results. When you have all of these routines and habits and behaviors that create really good conditions in your life, happiness emerges spontaneously. It kind of comes from within. It's not something that you can try to achieve. You can't think your way into happiness. Happiness has to sort of arrive at you where you realize, whoa, I've just had an incredibly happy moment. I'm suddenly feeling in the zone right now. So that's the first tip. Don't try to pursue happiness. The second tip is that happiness is not external to you. You see, happiness comes from within and it emerges spontaneously. It comes from the values that you have. What do you actually value in your life? And if you start to value your relationships with other people, if you start to value things that really naturally come about, if you start to value things that emerge from whatever your habits and routines of behavior are creating in your life, that's when you will find yourself becoming happier much more spontaneously. Whereas when you start to define happiness as coming from external things from outside yourself, I think that's where it starts to become really hard to achieve. And you end up, it's like a, what's the thing where you put the carrot on the end of a stick, is in front of an elephant? I don't really know, but you end up just following the carrot over and over and you never quite get there. You have to get happiness from the act of following that carrot, from the movement of life as you move from one situation to the next. I mean, you're never really going to arrive at any particular place called happiness. It's completely internal to who you are. Happiness has to be generated internally. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3, I've learned this from some really inspiring people in my life. For example, my brother Lachlan Brown, and he often says that happiness comes from when you're satisfied with where you're at in life. As soon as you start to want things that you don't currently have and you start trying to create a plan for how you're going to get there, for how you're going to change the course of your life to actually arrive at this peak state of happiness, that's when it becomes a very elusive goal. Myself, I feel like I've changed a lot over the last few years at a very deep level, and the things I value more than anything right now is I would say truth and honesty, some sort of commitment to honesty, a commitment to integrity, a commitment to cultivating good relationships with a small number of people in my life. And I'm very lucky to have surrounded myself with people that have these very similar values. And I get so much happiness from just tiny little things. Like, I work with my brother every day. I'm here in Vietnam working with him. And I just love, when we arrive and we do our work and we achieve very small things every day, very kind of like small movements forward. And it's very satisfying. I get a lot of happiness from watching my football team win a game. That's very, it's just so simple and so easy. I get happiness from being in touch with my family every day. I mean, we have a group chat going on and we're in touch all the time. And, it's just really nice to have these really good relationships in my life. And I'm also really happy from doing meaningful work. I mean, creating videos like this, I think it's important. These are very wonderful messages to share. And it gives me a lot of satisfaction, a lot of meaning. And the happiness sort of just comes in bursts. It's never a constant state. It just sort of hits me from time to time. And I realize, I'm feeling a lot of happiness. It's not all the time. I experience a lot of fear and anxiety as well, but happiness is a very regular condition in my life, and it's because what I want is what I already have. Okay, the fourth tip is a little counterintuitive, I think, when you think of the commonplace advice that the path to happiness supposedly is to focus on yourself first. I think it's actually the complete opposite. A path to happiness is to start being useful to others. Now, the way to be useful is to provide things of value. When you think of who we are social beings, and that means that we create societies. Now, I know that myself and many other people get frustrated with society for putting us in boxes. You see, we end up being educated from a young age to fit into the way society's always been up to that point. And it's really frustrating because we want to create something new for ourselves. We want to improve things, and that's very natural to do. But I think the path to improving society comes from collaborating with like-minded people that share your values, from forming groups. Now, the groups that we form can be in opposition to other people around us, but that's kind of like a key part of who we are. We want to make things better. We want to keep on improving things. So we want to fight against what's come before us. But part of this process can't be going it alone. It can't be focusing entirely on yourself so that you can then be happy with other people. Instead, I think that we need to wrap into our definition of becoming happy actually doing this in collaboration with other people. And the way to do this is to be useful to other people around you, to provide value in their lives, to be a role model, to actually live a good life of virtue, to have good values, and to actually be friendly and kind and generous to other people around you. I think when you have this very deep respect for other humans, that's actually how you end up having respect for yourself. So it's almost the other way around. Don't focus on yourself first, focus on other people first. Find yourself in acting in service to other people. So you need to be useful to other people. But this leads me to tip number 5, and that is that you can't try to make those other people happy for them. What you can do is be useful to them, and the way to be useful is to live a really good and virtuous life yourself and to actually help other people achieve their goals. But you can't help other people become happy, because that does need to be a very unique journey that you are on yourself. So you need to stop trying to make other people happy, because that's when you end up imposing your own values on other people, and that doesn't help them, it doesn't help you. It ends up creating needy relationships, toxic relationships. You do need to focus on yourself in this journey. That's where the common advice gets it right, that it is all about you. The path to becoming happy, though, is in tying your value system to creating value in other people's lives, but just don't fall into the trap of trying to make those people happy along the way. I think if you follow these 5 tips, you will start to live a life of more virtue. It'll be more fulfilling. You'll more easily find meaning in your life, and happiness will be the consequence. Thanks so much for tuning into this video. Make sure you subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Make sure you leave me a comment to let me know what you think. I really appreciate you being here and joining me on this journey.